Welcome, everybody. We are the Innocence Project at UVA School of Law. We have to say that whole name every time we say it. As you all probably know, because you wrote all your applications about how you wanted to be in the Innocence Project Clinic, and we have all of those, and we're going to have binding contracts with all. No. So we have two different clinics that we want to talk to you about because we can sort of meet everyone's needs depending on what they want to do when they're in the clinic or when they're in the volunteer pro bono project, which is what Katie Clifford is the president of. The clinic itself has 12 students for a year-long project. This year we have, well, wait, I'm going to back up. So there's the Innocence Project in New York, which was sort of the mother of all innocence projects. And that was, started by Barry Scheck, Peter Neufeld. They then spurred all of these many other projects that have begun, now not just in the United States, but all around the globe. And they do only DNA cases. So what they're always doing is searching for DNA, testing the DNA, and exonerating what I'm told is 45 to 47% of the people who request the testing. A lot of success. We do not do only DNA. We do all different cases, which is far better for the clinic because you're not just looking for physical evidence. So we have all the sort of many types of cases that you can have when you're looking into wrongful convictions generally. So for instance, we right now have a shaken baby case. A woman who was accused of shaking a baby into in a very serious medical condition. Didn't die, but a serious medical condition. We maintain and always have that she did not shake the baby. We have cases where there's only informant testimony, right? Jailhouse informants coming forward and saying that a person confessed to a crime that they didn't confess to, in our opinion. We do have DNA cases. We have cases where eyewitnesses are mistaken. We have cases where a juvenile was accused of forcible rape of a girl, a friend of his, and she later recanted. So all manner of cases. The clinic itself has 12 clinic students for a year, which gives you an opportunity to really invest in your case. And because we have the pro bono clinic as well, many students who take the clinic are admitted to the clinic in their second year can then stay on and work on their case in the third year through the volunteer project if they choose to. So you can take the clinic as a second or a third year. There's no prerequisites. You don't have to have taken evidence or professional responsibility, although those courses would help you a lot. We ask people to put in 12 to 15 hours as a minimum for working in the clinic. People work many more hours than that, like Katie Clifford. Many people stay invested, through their entire time here. Now, the separate second clinic, and I'm going to stop soon and let you guys ask questions. The volunteer pro bono clinic is a separate, it started as a student-run group, and now has morphed into a pro bono clinic. Anybody can join that. They have their own separate set of cases. So there's 8 in the active cases now in the clinic, and there's 8 active cases in the volunteer group. They have their own space. They have a president, Katie Clifford. They have a managing board. And many of the 2Ls from the clinic become the directors of these cases, the student directors. So although we supervise and we're there and we work with those groups, they have their own set of things and they have a student who's done these cases, who's worked on the cases before. We also, thanks to John Grisham and Renee Grisham and Sonia Smith, have private donated money so that people who are in that clinic we hire private investigators to work with them on their cases. So you're not limited to investigating by when I'm available. You can go with other people as well. Katie, what am I missing on the pro bono clinic?
A lot of the pro bono cases are in the earlier stages of investigation. So they're cases that we're just vetting. We'll get a letter from an inmate, send a questionnaire back, and decide what cases to take. So often the pro bono cases, which mostly 1Ls work on, led by 2 and 3Ls, are in the earlier stages, whereas the cases in the clinic for credit are going to be more along, you're going to be filing things.
Drafting pleadings, motions. Sometimes we're filing motions to test evidence. Sometimes we're filing a motion to reconsider if a court has denied. We do state habeas, federal habeas, writs of actual innocence, and we have a clemency petition we're working on right now to ask the governor to exonerate someone whose time in court is now over. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. We've had people who stayed in the volunteer project for 3 years, not ever in the clinic, but put in certainly the same amount of time as anybody who was in the clinic. I'm told that when you have this on your resume, it's all that anybody will ever want to talk to you about when you go for your interviews, and that, that's not a small thing to be able to say that's what I've done. Law firms, of course, love it because it means you've done things, that you have practical experience.
And we work with law firms a lot too.
We do.
Partner with law firms.
We do.
Do you take any non-actual innocence cases, like if there's somebody on death row and may have a compelling, like ineffective assistance of counsel claim, but not a compelling actual innocence claim? Do you take any of those?
So now I have to make a pitch for my husband's office. He runs the Death Penalty Resource Center in Virginia, and it's actually over on Ivy Road. It's like 2 miles from here. You can volunteer with them. They do anybody who's on death row in Virginia, and they do, you don't have to be actually innocent now. That said, we got asked to work on a death penalty case of a guy who was on death row who we believe was actually innocent. And he had ineffective assistance of counsel claims. He had massive prosecutorial misconduct claims. His convictions were all vacated after we worked with King and Spalding and had a 4-day hearing in a federal district court. And all of his convictions were vacated, and he is now back indicted for far more serious crimes by a new special prosecutor. And you're welcome to work on that case. We'll put you right in touch with them. But so a lot of times people apply to us, and it takes a long time to read the letters to figure out what the inmate is saying. Sometimes they're saying, I had constitutional violations in my case. I had an ineffective lawyer. There were prosecutorial misconduct issues, but I'm not actually innocent. Or I did do the robbery, didn't do the murder. We tend to stay away from those because the Innocence Project is supposed to be helping the people who are actually innocent. So. Mm-hmm.
Do students have a certain amount of say in which cases get taken on by either the clinic or the pro bono?
Especially at the pro bono clinic level, when they're being led by 2 and 3Ls with 1Ls, we have so many cases, and you're reading through so many that there's a lot of polling kind of the group. Like, do we think this is a case where the person was innocent? If we do think they're innocent, is there enough here to work with? Like, have they exhausted all their appeals? Have they already filed everything they can file? Will we be able to prove it? And often the decision to drop them is, I think, like, Deirdre's going to be the ultimate authority, but we've a lot of times at that stage have been the ones to actually read the entire file. So there's.
I have to say though, even though I've been doing what I do for 27,000 years, it's been wonderful to be here for the last 8 years almost, because you get really jaded and bitter, and I tend to make these like a quick assessment of, well, that doesn't sound real to me, and the students are the constant reminder to me of, let's check into that a little bit more. So it's closing cases is the hardest thing we do, and nobody ever wants to do it. And sometimes when somebody doesn't want to close the case, a student, I'll say, okay, let's keep going, because making the call to the person and saying, we're not going to do this is awful, and you won't ever have to do that. But it's not something we take lightly. So yeah, absolutely. More questions? Oh, come on.
So like students who are really invested like in the clinic or in the pro bono, do you find that your students mostly go on like to work in similar fields, in public defense? Like what it kind of ends up the after law school being for most of your students?
Right. So it's sort of all over the place,
Yeah, it's
right?
really all over the place.
So we've had people that were in the clinic, and like one year we had a student who had a law firm job. She was going to go do that. That was absolutely, and by her 3rd year she was saying, not going to do it. She went, and she's a public defender. We have people that, Chris Leszewski, wasn't he saying he was going to be a tax lawyer in the beginning? And he's now at my husband's office defending death row inmates in Virginia. But a lot of people go to firms, but once they've had this experience, when they go to those firms, the firms often want to take these cases, whatever state they're in. And so there's a network, and we can always funnel the case, like that student often will call me later and say, okay, who do I call about our firm getting involved with the Ohio Innocence Project, So yeah, you get much more say, I think, at law firms if you can say, I've done this before, I've worked on this before.
Our current board has 2 people clerking right away, 3 of us going to law firms, and 1 person doing appellate public defense, and 1 person who wants to be a prosecutor after his clerkship. So it really is the whole spectrum.
It's also, sometimes in the beginning when I first started, people were saying that because of the B+ mean, that some people would be, students that are vying for law review or on law review are going to steer clear because of the B+ mean, because it's harder to get an A in a clinic with a smaller class. We had a year where we had 4 people on law review in the class, loved it, they were fine. 1 this year, it has not been a deterrent in any real way. Who's going to be on law review? Hands up. The other thing too, I don't know how many law schools have an Innocence Project, but it's not a whole lot that have people. So in Virginia, there's a Mid-Atlantic Innocence Project up in DC, and they have, clinics at different schools. And then there's a class at University of Richmond right now. But there's not many law schools that have both a clinic and a volunteer project to accommodate all of the students. So it really is a huge plus, and if it's something you're interested in, you should think about it. It wasn't available, I went here too, and nothing like this was available. I would have been all over it. I mean, I would have been on law review too.
I think we had about 75 1Ls start volunteering in the fall. There's always some drop off. I think right now actively probably have about 50 1Ls who are involved in it.
Mm-hmm. And there's travel too, so people have, some, and if you don't want to, you don't have to. But so one student 1 year flew with a private investigator to Puerto Rico to spend the weekend with a rape victim in one of the cases, had the time of her life. It was probably the most open, friendly rape victim one could ever meet and talk to. She wanted them to spend the weekend with her. And we go, we're going to go to Alabama to talk to witnesses in a couple weeks.
We're bringing 1Ls on that trip. We sent a 1L with an investigator lawyer down to Asheville in the fall of her first year, and she got to do a series of interviews and wrote the memos for those. So there's definitely places for 1Ls to get involved if you're interested. It's a way to try it out and see if you want to take on the full year-long credit commitment. Yeah.
You said earlier that you would have done this or a law review. Is it something?
That was a lie, but go ahead. What?
Is it something that you find that students can't find the time to do both, or is it a choice, or?
I think most of us who are on the Innocence Project board are pretty involved with other things as well. I'm in another clinic, appellate clinic, and so I think most of our board is either in the public defense clinic or prosecution clinic. So we're all in journals. There's a lot of, it takes up a lot of time, but it's a matter of what you're gonna, I think, prioritize. It's also really extraordinary to me the range of things that people can handle at one time. So people like Katie Clifford seem to be endlessly awake and working, and other people not so much. So it's really a know yourself sort of thing. But Chris Leszewski is another perfect example of somebody who did absolutely everything the law school had to offer, as far as I could tell. He was on law review.
And he was on law review, and he was doing people's taxes in his free time. And it's so I mean, sure, he's amazing, but anyhow, but so are all of you. So more questions. You had your hand up.
Yeah, do you have to have prior experience in the area to be accepted into the clinic? What kind of things do you look for to get in?
Well, so people tell us, there's people who, to get into the clinic, the 12-person clinic, we ask for a resume and a letter of interest, which is perhaps the most important thing is, and there's, when you said that, the first thing I thought of was a guy I used to work for who said he used to ask people, oh, have you ever been a journalist? Have you ever been an investigator? Have you ever worked for a public defender? And he said, I realized at some point that I should no longer ask that question. What I should say is, are you a gossip? Are you curious? Because that's who I really need, is the people who just endlessly interested in finding things out. So no, not really. It helps. Like we had a kid who was a journalist who he's very, very comfortable going and knocking on doors and talking to people. That, you know, that's helpful. But then a lot of people are good at that. So yeah, there's not any real.
I went straight through from undergrad to law school and didn't really have any substantive experience. So I got involved as a 1L though, and I think being involved as a 1L gave me a leg up in applying to the clinic, certainly, because you've already worked on the type of cases we've worked on. So, but no prior experience before law school is necessary, I don't think.
Mm-mm. When I, in between my college and law school, I worked at Skadden Arps as a paralegal and got put on, I begged my way onto a death penalty case that they took. And that was the very first case I ever worked on. I was from Washington, D.C. I had to spend 2 years in El Paso, Texas, where I was stuck out like a sore thumb. And he turned out to be the wrong guy. We got him off death row. After law school, my husband and I moved to Jackson, Mississippi to defend death row inmates there.
As students, how often did you get to see a case from start to finish?
I'm trying to think if I've seen some end, but they were here before I started. I think in general the DNA cases, there was one the spring before I started school where I think it came in, they got the testing, they got the results of the testing, and they got the exoneration within a period of months. But since we don't just do DNA cases, that doesn't always happen that often. There was a case that we worked on that we got a confession for, and the petition is going to be filed soon, so I won't get to see the entire completion, like the result of it, because the courts can sit on these things for a while.
We had the juvenile case, the very first case really that our clinic took, and he was in a juvenile facility accused of forcible rape. The victim recanted, her mother came forward. We pretty quickly were able to put together a package for the Department of Juvenile Justice, who released him. So he got to go home, and that all happened, I think we got that case in December, and I think he went home in February. But it took 6 years to go through habeas and get him exonerated. But if you do really poorly and stay on, you could see it through. Questions? Yeah.
You might hate this question because you've probably gotten it 1,000 times, but what's the status of the Adnan?
Oh my God.
What's cereal?
I'm sorry, what are you referring to? So he has, anyone who knows about this, he has this appeal that was pending when all of that happened, and that is currently proceeding. And there's sort of a debate about whether or not we have to wait for that to end before something can happen. I have nothing to do with that appeal, so I don't.
Yeah.
Has your opinion changed since you've been interviewed?
No. I mean, and the thing about that case to me, and Katie, if you disagree, that's totally, it just has all the earmarks of a wrongful conviction, right? It had, in a lot of ways, it reminded me of the Justin Wolfe case in that the person who is clearly involved and caught then turns and lobs stuff on the person that is an obvious choice, right?
Justin Wolfe was the inmate that was on death row that
Right.
got exonerated, that is now, or charges thrown out, that is now currently awaiting trial.
Right. And so, it just seems to me that a person like Adnan, why would someone like Adnan, like that whole theory about, his dark hatred and honor that must be requited because his girlfriend broke up, I don't know, like that just doesn't sit well with me. And the lawyer, anybody who heard it, she was clearly in a bad place during that trial. And I thought the interviews that happened after Serial, the ones with the prosecutor and Jay Wilds being advised to admit perjury, like, who does that?
I won't say that case something like that will ever come into our project again, but that was a team that me and another 2L led a bunch of 1Ls who started working on it. So
that started as a pro bono
case. It was Mary Opea and I, and then a bunch of the 1Ls on Maria's team, who read all the documents and kind of dug into it over spring break kind of time of their 1L year, our 2L year.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
was-
that's not going to come back through the clinic again, I don't anticipate, but.
Please, God. Other questions? But if you want to be on a podcast, of course, we'll make that happen.